Will
Good, pretty good.
I thought, this is crazy town.
How are you doing?
Hi, Chad. How are you?
Yeah, Will.
Shed one thing.
Is she
Will.
good?
And of
Hi,
course it's not something
you look cute.
I guess it's because I don't want to fail in giving it what it does. And
That's a very
and that's
charitable
what,
way to look at it.
and I would rather not do it. Yeah, if I did that, it'd fall flat.
And I've done it a number of times. I regretted it one time.
What?
I should have given that more attention. This is good.
Yeah.
What is up?
It's been a bad argument.
It's good to see you. Gosh, I haven't seen you forever.
I
know, I feel like I haven't seen Hannah
Like you're this grown woman. I've got her.
I know,
I
and
want
that's,
to freeze you when you're about this big.
and it's different with your own kids, but
Yeah.
when you see other kids that, your kids went to school with,
Right.
it's like, I mean, you're a young lady.
Yeah, I know. It's
You're
weird.
not, you're not a kid.
I know.
She's about to go into a working career.
I
She is
know.
right there.
Meg, that's terrifying for everyone.
What hospital are you going to work at?
Yeah.
I don't know which one.
Yeah. No, seriously though, no, I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah, I knew you. So have you applied yet to hospitals?
Not yet. Not for a registered position.
She could do that.
Soon, but not yet.
So what you did last summer you liked or not?
Yeah, I love it. And it was good stuff.
Thanks for keeping us sane.
You're falling.
Not because you had to say
And a big tip, like
Your
basically
city.
we left nearly as much of it.
we're county or country rednecks.
But we brought the nephew
You know, I used to think I wanted to move to town, and I thought if anything ever happened to David, that would be the first thing I did probably would be move to town.
Seven.
But I don't think so.
Both
I
groups
think
together,
I'm
so 14 full together.
Oh.
We have
But
really
like
all
our
around
boys
my
ate
household.
on it last night, like all ate
I'm a
it
little
for
weirded out about people.
probably 2 or 3
I don't.
You brought it up for 6
I
minutes.
think I'd probably stay in the country.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I
weird?
don't even know.
No, not bad.
Maybe that I just want to be by myself.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're a lot freer to walk out your front door and throw around downrange if you feel like you need to throw one.
Yep.
If somebody's out there.
Yeah. That is true.
Your mom, is that what you guys found out?
Yeah, no,
We
she
did,
did.
yeah, this Friday, we're closing. Selling him because they won't be able to be out of there without until their members can come and get all this stuff.
How are you?
You can't have your current house you're in now.
Oh, no, because.
Hey, how are you?
No, because the new owners, the fella has been living in a hotel, working.
They're from away from there.
They're from Ohio, so when they come on Friday, which is okay, I guess. Yeah, they've got a long way to go. They seem like a very nice young family. I hope there's somebody next. It's across town.
Moving out, not moving away.
Oh, well, I'm gonna go say hi to Jeff real quick before I slip out.
Okay, then I thought.
ID. Hi, Bruce. How are you? Fine, Molly. How are you? I'm okay. What up, girl? I know you got me. How are you?
My shoes kind of give it away a little bit, so that takes me down a couple.
Yeah, okay. We need some help. Yeah, sit here with me. We need some help.
And then,
Mary Ellen, you So is it just ladies' time? That's pretty awesome. No, I love it that you're here. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So who are they playing? That's why he gets the dad. But he's still doing it. See, I used to do that. You know, and now it's like, I'm not doing it. And I'm really more about order me a dog, you know, it's 40 minutes. See, that's just, That's right. That's right. It wasn't Monopoly. It was Risk. That's right. But yes, Clue. We're big fans of Clue. Are you Harry Potter fans? There's Harry Potter.
I saw that.
It's really neat. It's some neat twists. Yeah, you don't expect it.
They started making like full like additional movies of Harry Potter, and she doesn't have the book, and I just found it. Yeah, it's like I have one Pottermore. They have this website Pottermore. It's like it kind of back on
together for you tonight. The community that we share and the encouragement we get and the teaching we hear are amazing byproducts, but we gather for you to tell you how great you are, how worthy you are of our praise, how marvelous and wonderful your love is for us. And we are grateful for your presence here and that somehow you're blessed by our praise. And we don't get that, but we're glad, and we just welcome you here tonight. Your presence is all I need. It's all I want. It's all I seek, and without it, there's no meaning. Presence is the air I breathe, the song I sing, and the love I need. And without it, I'm not living. I will exalt you, Lord. I will exalt you, Lord. There is no one like you, God. I will exalt you, Lord. I will exalt you, Lord. No one can be lifted high. Your presence is all I need. It's all I want. It's all I seek, and without it, there's no meaning. Your presence is the air I breathe, the song I sing, and the love I need. And without it, I'm not living. I will exalt you, Lord. I will exalt you, Lord. There is no one like you, God. I will exalt you, Lord. I will exalt you, Lord. No one can be lifted high. There will be no one like you, no one beside you. Alone are worthy of all praise. There will be no one like you, no one beside you. Alone are worthy of all praise. There will be no one like you, no one beside you. Alone are worthy of all praise. Your presence is all I need. It's all I want. It's all I seek, and without it, there's no meaning. Your presence is the air I breathe, the song I sing, and the love I need. And without it, I'm not living. I will exalt you, Lord. I will exalt you, Lord. There is no one like you, God. I will little business matters. So the first is that we have a guest speaker tonight, Jeff Knoll, and if you would like to follow along digitally with his sermon, you can go, and we have Wi-Fi out here. If you need Wi-Fi, the password, don't even ask why, but the password is Punky, P-U-N-K-Y, like Punky Brewster, 5231. Feel free to sign on. And you can download an app that's just called GHC. That's not like a hormone, it's from their church. It sounds like a hormone, doesn't it?
Make sure there's a couple of GAC apps.
Okay.
It's the Grace Heartland Church.
There you go. Make sure you get Grace Heartland Church. And then go to e-bulletin at the bottom.
And then today's message, and then you can follow.
And you'll be there. Does that make sense? So GHC is the app. And then Tim.
Alrighty. Okay, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Right, there we go. All right. It wasn't that funny. So this coming Saturday, so 6 days from now, we're going to do the men's retreat. I announced it a couple weeks ago. We're going to have the men's retreat out at the farm where we did worship like in July, right before Zeteo. So guys, basically here's the schedule if you want to take a look at what we're going to be doing. And we're going to have some time. We're going to work through the book of Nehemiah, not through the whole book, but some scenes in Nehemiah, and learn what it means to have a life of purpose. And we're going to tackle that subject. Meanwhile, in between, there will be some eating, there will be some bag toss, there will be some shooting things, and I don't know, maybe even some blowing up things. I don't have any. That's not my department. That's not my area of expertise. But if nothing else, you like to shoot and blow up things, then you should come on out. But here's the schedule if you want to look at it. It's also with directions out to the farm if you're not sure how to get there. Okay. So there's like 25 copies of this. So guys, feel free to just take one. I'm going to set it up here, and you can get it at your leisure. The other thing is, what it would just help us. I mean, there's obviously like no registration, no cost, but it would just help us if we knew you were coming. So is Marky Mark here?
No.
Okay, so if you know you're coming, either let Mark know, he's kind of our official list keeper, or you could like let me know, or David Sprague, or Doug Littlejohn, or Chad, or Russ, and we can kind of keep track of you. Okay, I think that's it. All right, and then Doug had an announcement. So Doug, do you want this? You have a booming voice.
I'll take it.
More than I do.
You need to stay here for this. This is here. For this part, I need to. Why don't you stand?
You
Like just facing the crowd, face me a little bit more. We wanted to. October is Pastors Month, and so let's not do that. It's not a flexing thing. I knew that was going to be a problem. Tim wants to flex anytime he gets in front of the crowd. In the month of October is Pastors Month, Pastors Appreciation Month, and we waited till the very end because we knew that if we did something in the beginning, Tim would think about it, and then feel like maybe we should have done more. So we waited until the end of October to show Tim, and we really do. Jen should be up here for this too, but we're letting her stay there so I can make fun of Tim. We do love both of you so much. We appreciate everything that you do for us all the time, and it's not lost on us. So we wanted to present just something from the church to you guys. There's no need to open it right now. We need to keep things rolling. But I've taken just a straw poll here, and everybody expects something really flowery next week about how much you love all of us. So.
We love all you guys, but Doug was up here, so he gets the hug. So. Thank you very much.
We're going to move into, you all know that greeting time is not my favorite, but I know that some of you love it, so I promise you're going to get to. But when I'm in charge, I don't always like to have it, because I don't love it. I'm sorry. Okay, so anyway, we're going to have a greeting time, but it's when you do greet each other, I want you to land in groups where we're gonna do communion. Does that make sense? So you're gonna love on each other, but then land in a little circle of chairs because we're gonna do communion. And during communion, what I would like for you to do is just kind of share some of your stories. Sometimes we, in our family or in groups of teenagers, will say just do high, low, give a high from your week, a low from your week, but don't be afraid to share your story. And so to encourage you in that, I just want to read, this is from a blog that I read. I don't know this lady, but I kind of feel like we're friends, but she doesn't know. But she is just a regular lady. She has kids, she has a husband, she's living life, and I just really resonated with what she said, and so I want to share it with you to encourage you in your story sharing tonight in communion. She says, I've decided I'm a mess, and our family is a mess, and if I had to guess, you might be a mess too, maybe. I think about the disaster I turn into every day, sin after sin after sin. I get so pissed off, yes, I did just say that, Brenda, about things I really should be giving compassion and mercy and grace to. I put my sins on repeat and continue to fall on my face. I let my pride win, and I think I have it all figured out. I think my way is the best way, and I don't even think about offering me a different route. I think I know better than Jesus most days. My husband gets my worst, my kids get my worst. I find myself holding tight to grace when it should fall freely from my hands, because I am number one in line who needs it desperately. You guys, I've got nothing figured out, and every night I think, okay, God, let's give this another go tomorrow. But God has been teaching me about how valuable and important other people's stories are too. For a year now, I've been trying to lean into people's stories. I can be so quick to judge, but when I shove my know-it-all self aside and choose to listen and be curious and invest, sometimes people share, and it's one of the greatest honors ever. I then begin to understand others and their lives and how they arrived to the place where they are. I begin to see how impactful our stories are on others and who we are now and who we are becoming. Our stories shape and mold us into who we are. They are valuable and deserve a listening ear and an empathetic heart. It's easy to make judgments from the outside, from the surface of what I think I know. But when I get to digging and people share, I get a glimpse into the truth of people's hearts and lives. I keep thinking about how I want my own heart and story to be handled by others, so in turn, how will I respond and handle the story of others who share with me? I can't help but feel this is such a crucial decision, and I want to be so careful. So I just encourage you tonight to be brave to share a bit of your story, and when someone else does, to lean into that and to be curious and to listen. So, without further ado, you may greet each other and then land in communion groups. And when you hear music again, come back. Go for it.
I used to be part of the band. Hey, David.
She told me.
So now, like, who's the big job tonight? You're not out of that big
They work together. I tried to get them to
Yes, Mom.
Is anybody? Melody prayed for me Tuesday night. My sister and yeah, I can do that. Where we go now? Well, Simon stayed over Friday night. And at 3, friends, he kind of asked me about Grandma. They're all my husband. So,
I would say you would warn.
Miss Spears, if you're married, when was it with you about it?
Yeah, I know.
And I don't feel like thank you for giving us the gift that's, take us to that place where it's more honoring to do than honoring us. Praying for her.
Both of us didn't know anything about Miss Spears.
Well, when I met you, unfortunately, family, you always walk around.
She started in our bedroom. The office. And there you Loretta.
Throw that out of your mind.
Her mind is right up to you now. Thank you, Melody. Yeah, right there, everything.
Well, I know I heard Gary Cameron, and then you said
Yeah, I was on your, I was right with you there. I'm going, whoa, okay.
Time for the shower.
I like you there.
Story. Let's stick with it. Radio show.
Oh, it was hand me down. Hand me down. It was hand me down from my girlfriend. It landed on my lap. And it's all
Man, I'm just starting off on
About him, he was smiling. The other thing I said out of Jared, she was talking to him.
You probably need it. Are you gonna go or not? I did not act like a person last night. Oh, God. I'm lighter.
My middle name? Okay. There's like 6 brothers. So, my middle name's Marshall. My dad's first name is Marshall. They call him Ned.
I wanted to go try like some more time is really good. And they're like
So when I moved away from home, here, so my father went to talk to me.
And so I slept outside on the like back and made me so happy. I wrote everywhere there except for one.
What's their big toast? I hope everybody has a good
That was my favorite one. Yeah, that's my least favorite
Thank you for his graciousness to drive all afternoon to bring us your word. And we are just excited to hear what you have to bring us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
trying. That was so smooth. I gotcha.
There we go.
We're good. We're live.
Good song anyway.
It is. Okay.
Hey, what's up guys? So in the past couple months, I've been talking to lots of homeless people, and they all told me that people treat them differently. They don't treat them as human beings. So today I'm going to dress like a homeless guy, and I'm going to go in and eat at a fancy restaurant. Let's see how they treat me. Sorry, sir. Can I eat here?
No, sir.
Can I check the menu?
No. Go straight.
I have some money.
Yeah, no problem.
No? Can I eat here?
You know what? I don't think you can do it.
Oh, I can't?
No.
Oh.
Especially the owner, he is going to complain.
So the owner doesn't?
No, I'm sorry.
Can I see the menu?
Menu?
Yeah.
Do you have means of paying for the menu?
Yeah, I have some money.
Okay.
Can I come sit inside and
No,
food?
not inside. No.
I can't.
No, you can't. Sorry.
Oh, I can't sit inside.
No, you can't. It's cheaper for you upstairs there. The pizza is a whole lot cheaper than this. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming.
Good, how are you? Question, can I just check some menu real quick? I don't know what you guys have here. Is it okay if I can eat here?
Sure.
But can I see a menu real quick? And stuff? Do you guys have anything like really nice in here?
Seafood, like a lobster, like a shrimp, crab, mussels, or something like that.
So I can go inside and eat it. It's cool, right?
Yeah.
I was here a couple not too long ago. Do you remember me?
Wow.
You remember me?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, because actually I didn't have to pick up my car, I had to pick up my clothes.
Okay.
But now like you guys can serve me now, like it's kind of like I don't get it. Like you guys maybe shouldn't judge people by the way we look.
No, you're perfect.
I'm perfect now?
Yeah.
Okay, well you know what? I'm not really that hungry anymore because the way you treat people makes me sick.
Okay.
Alright man. Thanks.
You coming with a little...
Yeah, remember me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I was asking you guys say, you know, you can't really eat here, so I was like...
I tell you, not be bad, you know. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time, go inside the restaurant, see the poster, see order, what you want.
Yeah?
That's it.
That's it?
That's it. Here, serve it up, okay? Order table and everything.
Okay. Yeah, I was here earlier. You guys didn't want to eat me, so I come back. We don't want to judge people by the way we look. It's status. Everybody should be equal. You know what I mean? Everybody should be equal.
That's me right there.
You know, respect everybody.
I told him.
До свидания.
I love the last line. I don't know what happened. Yeah, you do. So Tim said, just preach whatever you're preaching Sunday morning. So I said, all right. We're going through an entire series on discipleship, and the last couple of months I've been preaching from the teachers of discipleship in the New Testament, Jesus and Paul and James. And so today we looked at a second teaching from James. And do I have this on? Am I on? Is it on now? It's on now. So the green light's on. So. And so today we were talking about favoritism. And I saw this particular video and I thought, this is something that's not totally surprising, I suppose, in an exclusive elite restaurant. that they might have certain kinds of standards by which they judge who can come in and who can't come in. And, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, it is what it is. It's the culture, it's the society in which we live. The issue is, what would it be like if that happened in church? And the reality also is that there are times, and there have been times, when people have absolutely felt the exact same way when it comes to attending church. That for one reason or another, they're not dressed right, they're not from the right socioeconomic background, they're not the right ethnicity for that particular church, or whatever it may be. They just feel like there's a lot of keep out signs being either verbal or just the way they're treated or the way they looked at, that almost immediately makes them feel like, you know what, I'm not wanted here, and I'm not welcome here. And we cannot let that happen. And that's not a new thing. So James was writing to this church, and here's what he had to say to them. And if you've read any of James at all, you know one thing about James, he's like straightforward, no holds barred, right after it. You know, he just says it like it is. My dear brothers and sisters, how can you claim to have faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ if you favor some people over others? For example, suppose someone comes into your meeting dressed in fancy clothes and expensive jewelry and driving a Ferrari, and another comes in who's poor and dressed in dirty clothes. And if you give special attention to a good seat, and a good seat to the rich person, but you say to the poor one, you can stand over there, you all sit on the floor, well, doesn't this discrimination show that your judgments are guided by evil motives? That was the reality of the culture then, that where you were seated in a public meeting was determined by your power and your influence and your socioeconomic level. And that carried over, unfortunately, into the church. And James was saying, not going to happen. That stuff doesn't happen in the family of God. That is not part of what it means to be a Christ follower. We don't make people sit on the floor or stand on the wall because they happen to be from a lower socioeconomic level. Sorry about you people on the back wall, but anyway. That's not who we are, right? So, you know, there we go. But you can see who's sitting in the important seats. No one. That's the spit section. That's why they don't sit there. So, listen to me, dear brothers and sisters. Hasn't God chosen the poor in this world to be rich in the faith? Aren't they the ones who will inherit the kingdom that he promised to those who love him? But you dishonor the poor. Isn't it the rich who oppress you and drag you into court? Aren't they the ones who slander Jesus Christ, whose noble name you bear? Now, please don't misunderstand this. This is not a treatise against wealthy people. And you have to understand the cultural context. I mean, the wealthy people were a very few in number in this particular context. And they held all the cards. They held all the power. And they controlled the justice system. They controlled everything that kept the vast majority of people who were the poor and the oppressed, they kept them oppressed. And everyone knew that. So there was this visible hypocrisy that was visible when these people that they all knew were the ones who were shaming the Lord and turning, you know, and oppressing people, and they'd come in and all of a sudden, oh, look who it is. Here, have your seat. And they're like, really? You know, wait a minute. What are you doing? And so he's exposing that hypocrisy in the midst, and he's helping them to understand that kind of an attitude that causes us to show people some kind of favoritism based on any kind of a differentiation is not a part of the family of God. Yes, indeed, it's good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you're committing a sin. You're guilty of breaking the law. And that's where I hope you'll land tonight in this particular passage, is if you favor some people over others, okay? There's a lot of reasons why some people are favored over other people. And basically what James is saying is that whole system, not a part of the family of God. And I hope you'll see why as we move through this. Because here's kind of the sermon in a sentence, guys. The church seeks everyone who's without Jesus in order that all can be free from the bondage to sin. That's what we do. That's who we are. We are on a mission from the Lord, seeking all people who are not yet followers of Jesus Christ, because everyone needs to be freed from their bondage to sin. That's why we are here. Favoritism stops that process. Favoritism can get in the way, because basically favoritism is just another word for prejudice. And what ultimately is prejudice? Prejudice is prejudging. It's making a judgment about someone before you've ever had any opportunity to really get to know them. And I want you to understand that in this passage, there's prejudice going two directions here. There's prejudice about those who are poor, but there's also prejudgment and prejudice about those who are wealthy. And both are wrong. And both ultimately comes, as he says, from evil motive. You know, I really like that about James. Last week I preached on controlling the tongue. And, you know, he's kind of like that southern fiery preacher. And he says, you know, your tongue is set on fire by hell itself. Whoa. You know, so, you know, he just kind of says that. And that's like straight from the pit of hell. That's one of my favorite statements. You know, anything that's straight from the pit of, I don't really even know what the pit of hell looks like, but it must be pretty bad, because bad stuff comes from there. Kind of the same thing he's saying here. It's from evil motives. In other words, whenever that kind of favoritism and prejudice happens, what's causing that? Well, it could be selfishness. We sometimes get selfish in our groups. We like everyone in our group to be kind of like we are, because that's just a whole lot easier. It makes life easier. It makes conversation easier. We don't have to go out of our way. We don't have to get out of our comfort zone. And ultimately, let's kind of be honest with ourselves here. When that happens, when we're not crossing socioeconomic, cultural lines, then we're kind of taking the path of least resistance. And I think if we see anything about Jesus, he didn't take the path of least resistance. You know, the disciples said, we got to go around Samaria. He said, no, we're going right through it. Because these people that you hate, I've got an appointment with a woman at the well. And I know you guys hate her, but we're going there. And so that might have been the shortest way, but it wasn't the common way. And it wasn't the path of least resistance. So, you know, point being this, that sometimes that evil motive of prejudice or favoritism really kind of shows our selfishness. And it results in exclusion, where we're literally excluding people from hearing the gospel because something about us, and maybe something about the way we worship, maybe something about the style of our meeting, maybe something about what we do, ultimately becomes an excluding factor. And even though we don't put up a sign that says keep out, it may very well be communicating keep out to certain segments of society. You know, that's a hard lesson to hear, but I think all of us need to occasionally have our eyes open to say, does everyone feel welcome here? Does everyone feel like they have a place here? Because that's ultimately what we're about. And here's the other thing I want you to understand, that if we make judgments about people from a socioeconomic level, that also can become usury. That can become a thing where basically we're saying, you know, that particular family, whoa, you know, like, woo, you know what job he has, you know what job she has, you know what family they're a part of? Wow, you know, they'd be really good for our church. See, there's where the righteous justification comes in. You know, they'd be great for our church. Okay, why don't you just say, hey, welcome to our church. Here's the offering basket. You know, because that's the ultimate. Hey, welcome to our church. Do you realize how many ministries you could do? So are you beginning to see how that can kind of become usury? Using people for what they can do for us. It's not part of the family. You know, we need to trust that God will provide what we need as a church. From financial circumstances and also from time, talent, and resources, all of those things. We don't need to help him out with that. We need to continue to share the gospel, but we don't need to make those judgments, because ultimately that kind of prejudice is prejudging. I think it's pretty obvious in this particular passage there's really two specific prejudices going on here. There's prejudice against the poor, making judgments about them, why they would not be good for the church or the organization, putting them in a submissive and an oppressive place. And it's really putting them down. It's excluding them from the church because they're considered unable to contribute at the level that others would. I mean, that's a pretty raw and a pretty straightforward approach to what I think he's saying here in the text. And, you know, it doesn't have to be the poor. It could be a cultural ethnicity that we make people feel like that. You know, and so all of those things, folks, have to come up. And you know, it always breaks my heart when I hear people say this cliche, that the 11 a.m. hour on Sunday is the most segregated hour of the week. You know, unfortunately, that's probably true. That churches tend to be the birds of a feather flock together thing. Churches tend to gather around culture. And I understand that at some level that's probably just going to continue to exist. But my question is, do we operate in a way where people understand they are absolutely welcome? No matter what their background, no matter where they were, no matter what it was that draws them to Jesus, that this is a safe place. This is a place where they are welcome to come and to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think, you know, any of us that have been a part of some kind of a sales program or a sales initiative or sales training, we're taught along the way, don't prejudge people's ability to purchase the product that you have. You've all heard that line, right? And, you know, I remember the first time I heard that was from the Claypools, and, you know, at an Amway meeting. And I remember hearing that, and I thought, wow, you know, that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. But, you know, their teaching was just make a list and don't prejudge. Let them decide whether or not what you have, whether or not is for them. Let them make that judgment. I thought, you know, that was a really good teaching in many areas of life, because it really helped me understand how sometimes, just without thinking about it, both in church and in other aspects of life, I tend to do that. We all tend to prejudge people and make decisions for them. Don't do that. Let them make decisions on their own. Jesus did that for us. He lets us make our own decisions about whether or not we choose Him. And He didn't prejudice. He didn't come with prejudice. But you know, it's not just prejudice against the poor. Let me point out here, there's also prejudice towards the wealthy in this. You know, treating them with special attention simply because they are wealthy, that's also a prejudice, and that's an injustice to them. Because they're concerned about being people as well. I mean, if you've ever had a circumstance or situation in your life where you've become an acquaintance or a friend with someone that is really wealthy, I mean really wealthy, not just the richest person in town, but I mean really, really wealthy. You know what you begin to discover about them? They're very careful and cautious about their friends, because they're not certain why you want to be their friend. And you know what I've discovered about anyone that I've ever met that's really, really wealthy? They want to be accepted because they're people, just like you and I. They want to be accepted based on the merit that they're a person, and that alone makes you be their friend. And so we can easily have that prejudice that direction as well. That prejudice can go in both directions. Because here's the bottom line of all this. Value is not about net worth. Value is not about ethnicity. Value is not about who you were before Jesus Christ. You know how value's set in a person's life? See, because people are people. All people are people. We're just people. Value is determined by who created you and who paid for you. And Jesus did both of those. He created you, and then He bought you. And so if anybody's hanging a price tag on your neck or my neck or their neck, the ones that aren't here yet, that's Jesus. Not me, not you, not us. We don't get the privilege of putting the price tag on any person. Jesus already did that. And the cost was His life. That's the value. So that's really the value. And I hope you can see what James is trying to help us see in this passage is that oftentimes we literally determine the value of someone based on how we treat them and what our predetermined ideas are about them. But here's what's super cool. Man, this has been true in my life, and I've watched this happen in other people's lives. The thing that always breaks down those prejudices is when two people who come from, I don't know, it may be two different segments of life, and they may very easily have preconceived, stereotypical prejudices against one another. But somehow or another, they find themselves together in a circumstance where they begin talking with each other, doing what Jen encouraged us to do just a little bit ago, sharing our stories. And you know what happens when they start sharing their stories with one another? All of those prejudices just melt away. They just break down. They don't hold merit anymore, because all of a sudden what you begin to see is these are people. And these are people who Jesus died for. And these are people that have an opportunity to know Jesus. Last year, we were challenged, congregation I'm at in Kentucky, because the year before we had some really bad winter, cold nights. And E-Town's about a 30,000 population community, and there's definitely a homeless community there. And what was really kind of discovered in that super cold time was that our homeless people did not have anywhere to go to stay warm. The community center was not capable of doing that, and so it just exposed this huge weakness. And so we were challenged as churches to come together and create a program that would help this. So this ministry called Room in the Inn was started, where several churches in town, we're both host churches and partner churches. Some of us who have facilities that are large enough and have showers and kitchens are the host churches, and we take one night every week. Starts in mid-November, it goes all the way to February, and you have one night that's your night, and then a partner church comes in that they may not have a large enough facility, but they want to be a part of it, so they'll make meals and they'll help with entertainment. So every night, our night at Grace Heartland is Saturday night. So every Saturday night, we have a van and a couple of other vans that go down to the Warm Blessings kitchen, and we pick up a whole boatload of homeless people. We bring them to the church, we feed them, Northside comes, they help us out. We have entertainment for them. We have people that come and just hang out with them and talk and play games with them, and they can take a shower, and they have cots where they can sleep, and they can stay in families together. So it's just super cool. But the really cool thing that happened was that, of course, our people had to be there to help, minister and volunteer for it. What was really cool, and this morning I had a video testimony, but I didn't bring that, of one of our guys telling the story. His name's James Scala. And James said, I signed up for this ministry and I went through the training. He said, but I had kind of a stereotype in my mind of homeless people. He said, I thought homeless people were homeless because they wanted to be homeless. He said, but all of a sudden I started meeting and talking to them, and what I found out was they're just people that are in a bad circumstance in their life. He said, I also found out that a lot of them have jobs. They just don't have enough money to afford rent or down payment or something like that. And he said they're trying to get back up on their feet, but they just need help. And I mean, in the middle of this interview, when we were actually doing it, when we were taping it, he started weeping. Because all of a sudden, God broke his heart to understand that he had been completely prejudiced about a whole segment of society because he had preconceived ideas about them. And because of this, it broke down those stereotypes, it broke down, and it opened up relationships. And several of those people, that's the cool thing about having Saturday night, they stay and go to church with us on Sunday mornings. And it's super fun. I'm excited about this year because it happens to be Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is on Saturday this year. So we'll have the Wormage Shelter on Christmas Eve, so we're going to do Christmas with them. We're going to make it right for them to have that. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity. But point being this, folks, people are people. And when we enter into relationship, we begin to see that you cannot exclude people from the gospel based on their net worth. You cannot exclude people from the gospel based on their ethnicity. You cannot exclude people from the gospel based on where they came before they came to know Jesus. Because the gospel is for everyone. Favoritism is just basically another word for prejudice. The gospel is for everyone. I want to read to you again. I'm going to jump on down to Ephesians. So Paul was helping the Ephesian church how to move through a real prejudice that they had. Theirs wasn't socioeconomic. Their prejudice was hatred towards a whole people group, Jews and the Gentiles. So think in your mind of two cultures that you know of in our world today that hate each other, that don't want to be in the same room with each other, that literally hate each other just because you think of those two, that's the Jews and the Gentiles. They did not want to be together at all, hated each other, okay? The Jews were the self-righteous, pompous ones. The Gentiles were the dirty, nasty pagans. And that's just kind of the way they saw each other. But guess what? Both of them accepted Christ. And so now they found themselves together in church. And the worship leader told them to get in small groups and tell their stories. And they got real nervous about that. So stop happening. Okay? They found themselves doing church together, and this was a problem. And so Paul writes to them to remind them about who they were and who they are now. So listen to this. He says, this is God's plan. Both Gentiles and Jews who believe the good news share equally in the riches inherited by God's children. I'm reading out of Ephesians chapter 3 right now. I'm going to jump to chapter 2 in a minute if you want to follow along. Both are part of the same body, and both enjoy the promise of the blessings because they belong to Christ Jesus. In other words, he's saying, guess what, guys? Get along, because you're both a part of the body of Christ. And here's what happened. So I'm jumping back to chapter 2 in Ephesians, because he describes exactly what took place on a spiritual level, and that it resulted in them being together on a physical level in the church. Don't forget, he starts out by reminding the Gentiles of who they were. Don't forget that you Gentiles used to be outsiders. Yeah, right, thanks. Thanks, Paul. We already knew that. Thanks for reminding us. You were called uncircumcised heathens by the Jews, who were proud of their circumcision, and that was his shot against the Jews, even though it affected only their bodies and not their hearts. That cut deep to them, to their hearts. In those days, you were living apart from Christ. You were excluded from citizenship among the people of Israel. And you did not know the covenant promises God had made to them. You lived in this world without God and without hope. But now you've been united with Christ Jesus. Once you were far away from God, but now you've been brought near to Him through the blood of Christ. For Christ Himself has brought peace to us. He united Jews and Gentiles into one people when, in His own body on the cross, He broke down the wall of hostility that separated us. He did this by ending the system of law with its commandments and regulations. He made peace between the Jews and the Gentiles by creating in Himself one new people from the two groups. Together as one body, Christ reconciled both groups to God by means of His death on the cross. And our hostility toward each other was put to death. He brought this good news of peace to you Gentiles who were far away from Him, and peace to the Jews who were near. Now all of us can come to the Father through the same Holy Spirit because of what Christ has done for us. So you had the Jews. You know where? So if this right here is Jesus, you know where the Jews were? They were right here. They were right here. They were part of the lineage of God. They were the seed of Abraham. They had all the promises and the law. They had everything. But you know where they weren't? They weren't in Christ. You know where the Gentiles were? Way down by the Archer house. They were a long ways away. They were the heathen, nasty, uncircumcised pagans. They had no idea about this. But you know what both of them needed? It didn't matter whether they were here or there. What they both needed was Jesus. Jesus didn't make the Jews become Gentiles. He didn't make the Gentiles become Jews. He said you both need to die to yourself and you come in the door, which is Jesus Christ. And once you get here, once you get to the cross, it doesn't matter how close you were or how far away you were. That's gone, that's history, that's death. Now it's life. And right here, everything is put to death on the cross. All of our distinctions, all of those distractions, they all are made mute at the cross of Jesus Christ. That's why the church is the place, the only place on earth where real, legitimate, genuine peace can happen between people. That's why Jesus is the Prince of Peace. That's why our world, right now, think about our world. Is our world getting any closer? No. So the more Jesus is removed from our culture, look what's happening. The distinctiveness and the distractions and the divide in our culture is getting larger and greater all the time. You know why? I don't think we're under judgment right now, but I do believe that God is removing His blessing little by little. And I think the biggest reason is because a little over a year ago, our Supreme Court gave the finger to God. And they decided to say, you know what? We're going to redefine what you create. Sorry, I don't know how more blunt I can be. How can we not understand? And so when we do this, I mean, think about the timing, folks. Think about how racial and ethnic divides have just increased in the last year. is just astronomical. Because we're now falling back into this pattern of division. But yet Jesus says, in Jesus, all that stuff disappears. Jesus came to free people from oppression. You know, pulling back into the things that make us distinct is being enslaved to that. And Jesus is saying, no, put that to death. Find your freedom in me. Because prejudice is just another form of oppression. If I'm prejudiced against you, then that means that I'm keeping you in a prison. And I hold the key to that. That's what prejudice is. It's keeping people oppressed by what you think they are. But in Jesus, that dies. In Jesus, that's cured. Because there is no prejudice in the kingdom of God. So let me wrap this all up in what we do with all this. Our function in the world is very simple, guys. It's really not rocket science. Our function in this world is to share the gospel with everyone. We don't get to decide who gets to hear it, who doesn't get to hear it. Our function is to go where Jesus tells us to go, to share his gospel to everyone. Because that's what Jesus did. And that's what he would do, and that's what he's commissioned us to do. Our job is to reach the world. Go into all the world, preach, teach, baptize, and make disciples. It's kind of my mini paraphrase of Matthew 28:18. So let me just point out a couple of little things here that help us understand why sometimes we get distracted from this. We need to remind ourselves that we have one enemy, and it's not people. It's not other people groups. We have one enemy. In the spiritual realm, we have one enemy, and that enemy is Satan.
Amen.
Okay, that's our enemy. And we have one problem. All of us before Jesus had one problem. We may have felt like we had a bunch of problems, but we had one problem. Paul said this in Romans 3:9. Well then, should we conclude that we Jews are better than others? Not at all. For we have already shown that all people, whether Jews or Gentiles, Americans or who else, are under the power of sin. That's our problem. So without Jesus, our enemy is Satan, and our problem is sin. And Jesus took care of both of those issues on the cross. He destroyed our enemy on the cross, and he atoned for our sins by his death and by his resurrection. So those are not issues anymore. He took care of both of those. We can so easily develop prejudice against people because we see them as our enemy, or we see them as our problem. They're not either of those. Okay? We're here to help them escape just like we did, to let them see Jesus. So here's what I want you to think about as we move away from this. When you think about Jesus moving through the world as he did, who liked Jesus? Who liked Jesus more than anybody else? Sinners. They loved him. I mean, he was hip, he was cool, he was a hipster when they weren't even invented. I mean, Jesus was all those things, really. I mean, he was drawn to the sinners of that culture. You know who didn't like him? The churchy people, the religious. They didn't like him at all because he really messed with all their systems. He kind of really rocked the boat on stuff with them. They didn't know how to fit him into this. So they had all kinds of prejudices against him, which caused them to kill him. The sinners loved Jesus. Now understand this. They didn't like Jesus because he watered down the truth. Oh my goodness, no. He spoke absolute truth. But he spoke truth to them in love and with grace because he was not interested in condemning them. They were already condemned by their sin. He was interested in saving them and freeing them from oppression. They loved him because he had an answer and everybody else was just making them feel more sinful and more oppressed. And that's not. And think about how often churches make people feel like that. It is absolutely wrong when we do that to people. So I want to challenge you as a new church to commit yourself to continually asking yourself this question. Do sinners, do people who don't know Jesus yet, do they like us? Do they like us? Now, that doesn't mean you water down the gospel. That doesn't mean you go out and get involved with all of their lifestyles. That's not what I'm saying here. But when they are messed up, when they are hurting, when they are dying, do they find this to be a place that's safe and a place of refuge where they come and they find healing? I mean, really, if our hospital in E-Town is building a big brand new ER. So I can just imagine you get the brand new ER open, okay? And then some cut up, bleeding, messed up guy comes in and says, oh wait, brand new ER, everything's clean, can't have any blood. What's it for? Why is it here? Okay? So that's where people are without Jesus. They're a mess. We were a mess. But it was at Jesus that we found peace, and we found release, and we found grace. And that's what they need to find when they're here. It's not a sanctuary. It is a sanctuary for sinners, folks, not to condone, but to free them from that which oppresses them. So, are you prejudging people for the gospel? Remember this, guys. Disciples of Jesus Christ reach out to everyone without prejudice. So, Lord, thank you that when you looked down on us and you saw our great need, you did not come with prejudice. You came in love and grace. And even though you came to the Jews, and even though you came as an Israelite, you came through them so that you could share love and grace with all of us. And I'm pretty sure the vast majority of us in this room have no Jewish heritage. And we're here because that grace came to us, Gentiles. And so as we leave here tonight, and as we go back to our jobs or school or wherever it is we go tomorrow, Jesus, I pray that your light would shine through us and that we would not in any way prejudge people about the gospel. That we would share our stories of how you freed us from the stuff that oppressed us and how you too are the answer for that. May you be glorified, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
You be
Have a great week.
Hey, can you go get Mama water? She's dying. She's dying over there. Hey, see you guys later. I want to know who logging in. Thanks. I have my best servant yet. Well, thank you.